Hello class, my name is Suri Tartan and I will be showing you what is social interactionism like. The only objectives are students will demonstrate their understanding of social interactionism by engaging in role-playing activities that show how language is acquired through social interaction, through the caregiver and child interaction. The materials needed are flashcards with pictures of everyday objects, like dog, apple, ball. Simple words or phrases, propers, which are optional, whiteboards, or even a cart paper. Vocabulary, scaffolding, CPD, language acquisition, and social interaction are used during this role play. So the instructional intent is I have divided the class into a small group. Each group will do a short role play activity as a student acts as a caregiver and the other student will act as a child learner. I will give each pair a set of flashcards with pictures of everyday objects like a dog, apple, card, etc. and ask the caregiver to introduce each object using scaffolding. The vocabulary for scaffolding is modeling, monitoring, and encouraging. Example of scaffolding. The caregiver shows a flashcard of a cat and asks the child, "What is this picture?" The child will say, "Likely cat," and even spell the word. Spelling helps English learners understand the word and how it's written and produced. The child will say cat and then spell the word C-A-T, just like in this picture. The caregiver will ask the child, what sound does a cat make? The child would say meow and then spell the word meow. I said meow, M-E-O-W. That is what social interactionism is like, and I hope you learned a lot.
Hello, I'm Aurelie, and this is my part of the presentation with Sergey on language acquisition theory, social interactionism. The standard that I will be using is describe how different people in a community, such as parents, teachers, or leaders, contribute to learning and the growth of individuals. So, what is a theory? So, technically, social interactionism is just children learning language through social interaction with caregivers. Kind of self-explanatory, but it's just those social interactions that we have as we grow and grow up. So there's different types of social interactionism. So there's the symbolic communication, which is when people use hand gestures, facial expressions, or other nonverbal cues to communicate. So for example, like when I have a student who's nonverbal and needs a lot of visual cues, I'll point to what I want him to do. Like if I'm having him wash his hands, I'll point to the sink, and they kind of just symbolize like sink is the area that I go when I wash my hands. There's role playing. So in a family, each person plays a specific role. So like the parent, child, or sibling. These roles are socially constructed and maintained through daily interaction. So when kids have siblings or when your students have siblings, that's them getting that like role playing interaction. And then socialization. A child learns to interact with others and understand social norms by observing and participating in social practices like saying please and thank you or shaking hands. For example, I always have my students when they have a question, no matter if the question is asking for something or if it's just a general question, I'll have them say please, and thank you whenever I answer their questions. Or I won't do the action that they're asking me to. So just little things like that, showing them proper manners that you get when you're socializing with people. So some key vocabulary is scaffolding, which is what a teacher does when you're trying to teach this lesson. It's a teaching method that provides temporary support to learners as they develop new skills. So that's, for example, like think louds, and just guided practices. For example, you might have a student that is struggling a little bit, so you do like whole group questions and whole group think alouds where people are just brainstorming stuff. So it's just to give that support to develop new skills. Another one is a zone of proximal development, which I thought this was really interesting. It's a concept in education psychology that describes the gap between what a learner can do independently and what they can achieve with guidance and support from a more knowledgeable person. So, for example, subtraction might come easy to one of my other students where she can just look at the numbers and know that 3 minus 2 equals 1. But I might have another student that needs that visual support of like, okay, if you have 3 blocks and I take one away, how many blocks do you have left? And it's just that difference between that. Some people can just have that mental like knowledge where they just know, and other kids do just need that extra support. And then social interaction, which is an exchange between two or more people. So that's just everyday basic living stuff. Pretty self-explanatory, social interaction. Don't know what that is. So for the lesson, when you're trying to teach this theory, is you're gonna need flashcards with pictures of everyday objects like a dog, an apple, a cat, a mouse, whatever you want to use, and then simple words or phrases, and then you'll need a whiteboard or a chart paper as you're teaching this, depending on what you're teaching. For example, like if you're teaching CVC words, which is consonant, vowel, consonant, you can have like a chart paper and be like, all right, what letter says k, and show them that like I have my students that have visual cues for each letter. So when they say the letter C, they go k, k, k. So they have like visual cues. Or if you're teaching them something like subtraction and you want to use that chart board just as like a reference. But when you're teaching this lesson, for the activities for the kids, you will need flashcards with pictures and just pictures of everyday objects. So what are we doing? So you'll have the class split up into pairs. So it'll be groups of twos, and each group will perform a short role play where one student acts as a caregiver, the parent or the teacher, and the other acts as a child learning a new word, which is really cool. I implement this a lot in my classroom where I'll have a student help another student learn something. Like if I have a higher student that already knows how to read three-letter words, I'll have her like try to teach my other kiddos that are still learning how to blend those sounds together. So what you'll do is you'll have your students go into pairs of twos and split them up. And then, so how are we doing it? So, in pairs, one student will take on the role of the caregiver, explaining and pointing to flashcards, while the other will be the child learning new words. So, just a lot of like role play. As a caregiver, students will help their partner learn by repeating words, asking questions, and offering encouragement. This could also work really well with manipulatives. So, if you're trying to teach them like specific words like fruits or vegetables or like animal, a lot of visual things would help. Like if you had like a picture of a dog, like the flashcard's a dog, and you might want to have like a little action figure just for those kiddos that need a little bit more support. That would be great. So a little example of scaffolding. So just really letting the kids understand what they're doing. They're trying to teach, obviously a kid might know what a dog is, but for some students, they don't see the word dog and know the word dog. Like they need a visual picture. So basically, they're just going to be using the activity to teach each other simple words and everyday object stuff. One will be the teacher or the parent, and the other will be the child. When that is over, you'll have them all come together and then have a discussion. So you'll ask them, how did the caregiver help the child learn the new word? So what did they do? Did they use it in a sentence? Did they have them draw out a picture, or did they have them repeat it or follow along with every sound that the letter makes? So how did the caregiver help the child learn the new word? And then what did the child do to understand the word? So did you ask the child like, oh, which one shows a dog? And they're able to show a picture of a dog, or all right, which one shows an apple? And then they say apple, or if you tell them like, what is this a picture of? And then they tell you apple. that's how you could see if the child understood the word. But obviously, you want your students to answer this, so they would probably give you like a different answer, like, "Oh, I sounded out each letter with them every time we saw the word," or I would have them match the word dog to a picture of a dog. Last discussion question you could use is how did the caregiver use scaffolding to guide the learning? So that perfect example of they're having them read it and then match it with a word or something similar along that line, or if they're learning like a color, they're organizing the different colors. Um, so those are just like little examples that you could do after they finish their activity. So, what did we learn? We learned that in social interactionism, we learn language by interacting with others. Our parents, caregivers, and teachers help us by talking to us in a way we can understand, like using simpler words or repeating things. As we grow, we get better at talking and we learn to use language in conversations to express ourselves. So, it really just shows like the more you interact with others, the more that you learn and the more that you understand things because someone can understand something completely different than someone else and getting those social interactions really helps with creating meanings to words like where people or students will connect that a dog could be a pet and a dog could be a family member, a dog could be big, a dog could be small, or like someone can be allergic to cats or I only use that example because I'm allergic to cats. But um, yeah, so we just really learned that these kids learn more when they have those social interactions. And it also helps to show that a lot of people learn differently. Some people need that extra support, and some students don't. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in.